opportunity was huge because when the job came, we were meant to recreate, not recreate really, but do a new version of an iconic song.
You all heard it, growing up, and it's sort of an iconic dance track in its day.
But we knew that whatever ideas we get, we should work backwards from the time available to us. That we've got just about 20-21 days.
So when this project of Philips came to us, the first thing that we wanted to do is we had some sort of references from the agency about what they wanted to do, what the intention of this music video was going to be. When we saw these references, we felt as we went around doing more and more research that these kind of things have been done in many shows, in reality shows, etc. Hence, how do we make it different?
What I said was, if we are going to do a light suit like Mr. Bachchan had done, then actually really we stand on thin ice, because they had done 30 years back such a great job of everything, and of course the star himself.
Mr. Bachchan had worn this very flashy and very interesting jacket, and I think it was kind of path-breaking for its time, even when it was done.
So we needed to push it many notches higher in order to be able to get people to look at it and say, wow, this is something new, this is something different.
Firstly, we should change everything. We should change the way we approach the song, that we should change the way the dance is, we should change the music. Of course, we have to keep the melody, otherwise people don't remember what song are we discussing. But we should change, take it away from disco and take it into, the dance should become crump.
There really wasn't a brief as such, because one of the cool things about working with Prasoon is he never likes to brief.
I had the same brief for Remo, who was working on choreography, Aki, who was working on wardrobe, and Bijit, who was working on the graphics, and Dhruv, who was working on music. So for all these guys, I had the same brief, that listen, 30 years back, they had done a spectacular job of this song. We have to do something completely different, something that will surprise the audience.
My job was really to interpret the song and to bring some amount of tech into this new version. So I kind of thought it would be interesting to do a crunk. Crunk is the style of music which is sort of, it's breakbeaty and it's dancey, but it's kind of a mix of hip hop and a bunch of other things. So it's a really cool style of music, and it's very now. So I thought of doing something in that genre. That was broadly the idea where we started from.
Sara, Zamana, Sara, Zamana,
and if we are going there, then why should we restrict ourselves to just LED on the clothes? Because our job is to showcase LED. Why are we stopping short of really going all out on it? And so I said, let's see, what if we can do a whole set out of LED? So we started checking out what is it first that can be done on LED, and we saw everything, and I was a little kind of disappointed, because mostly LED is just beaming images. Okay. So I said, yeah, this is not happening. We need to do something else with LED.
While we were doing brainstorming about different references and all, suddenly we came up on something called 3D projection mapping.
But unfortunately, 3D mapping is not a product. So we said, okay, what if we do what people do in 3D mapping? What if we do that on LED screens?
And he said that we have to use LEDs in a way that nobody's ever used before, and to convey the uniqueness of LED as a light source, and at the same time have fun with it.
His idea, however, went far beyond this, which was to create the animations in such a way that they created a virtual space extending way beyond the walls of the cube, beyond its confines.
Like a confined space could be used with projections to create infinity.
And so we did this lovely exercise. And you say, that is my back wall. And then you take another flat image and you say, that is my side wall. And this is the third image, which is my third side wall. And you take another flat image like this, where all lines are straight only, there's no perspective in it. And you put it in and you say, okay. So, which means this is how I'm going to animate the net. When I'm animating, I'll have to do one animation for this wall, one animation for this wall, one animation for this wall, one animation for the floor.
First thing, we did a chart for our CG team to understand what all things has to be maintained throughout the renders. Certain things has to be named as A if we are rendering this panel, so it has to be, so there's no confusion, because there will be loads of renders in the entire project, and we should not get confused.
You have one vanishing point or two vanishing point or whatever, but you have one point of view from where you're seeing a picture, and when you are not at that point of view, at that point in time everything will look disconnected, disjointed. But when you slowly come to that mark, suddenly the side walls and the floor and the back wall, everything will cease to happen. So suddenly it becomes a different space.
This meant designing animations which took into account the position of the camera and the distortion on the various walls caused by the camera's view of one flat on, one oblique, and so forth.
This is what we did for the front wall. If you see that suddenly it expands. Okay. The same thing when you see in side B. See how it expands. Okay. What you see, it's actually a part of the wall A. This is an illusion of a wall A, but you are seeing it on wall B. When we put together in the 3D, you are going to see this wall is going to look seamless from the particular camera angle.
This meant that the animators had to dictate to us exact camera placements, and in some cases we would give a camera placement to the animators that they would animate too.
When we finally got down to doing research on the design, to execute the design, we realized that we had certain restrictions because the quantity of LED screens that we needed wasn't available, especially because we needed to create a floor on which Ranveer was going to dance.
26 foot by 26 foot with 14 foot high walls doesn't sound like a very big set. Indeed, Prasoon originally wanted it 40 foot square, but nobody could provide enough screens.
Zamana hai phir kyun? Pura hai dil lagana. Sara zamana.
When I knew that when I'm going to put acrylic here, okay, actually this side will reflect on this so badly, onto the floor. The rear would reflect onto the floor so badly that it'll completely screw up the illusion that I'm trying to create. And I had no clue, how we are going to resolve it.
Because the animations were constantly flickering from bright to dark, and I was using moving lights as well, I had no real static light source with which to set an exposure.
So I called up David and I asked David, do you think when we are here, we'll be able to get rid of this just by using a polarizer, you know. And he said, I really doubt it.
And the way I dealt with this, which I think is probably going to be only of interest to other DOPs and colorists, the way I got round the exposure problem was I produced another grayscale, this time with vertical bars. I had this displayed on the screens, zoomed in onto the back wall, and quite simply used the y-axis waveform on my monitor to set it to reflect a good peak white and a good dense black and nice steps in between. And that was my base exposure. I used it the whole time, I never changed it very much.
Of course, there were other challenges like we wanted it to look seamless, the floor to be seamless, and therefore the kind of execution that had to be done was we had to build in special pegs into the floor which would be holding up the acrylic. The gap between the acrylic and the LED floors was not enough for the ventilation. So there was enough heat being generated from the LED panels it actually warped a 30 mm acrylic.
So we thought about it for some time, and then we felt that we need to put in huge coolers and fans to pump enough air through this gap to be able to keep the LED panels cool.
Apart from that, we also came up with a plan that we would need a few other smaller, maybe not few, but maybe one or two other smaller sets which would be as attractive.
Fun is that because there was no thinking time, things just took some shape, you know. Now I wanted to do a tunnel because I wanted to go into a different set.
It was a very simple idea, primitive one might almost say, and I think none of us were quite sure how well this might work or not.
I always thought of a tunnel as an octagon, because I thought, you know, if I have two of those panels, you know, in a series down the line in the tunnel, so which means it would be like a 3.5 foot aside, an octagon like that, and then I have a good flat floor that people can dance on also.
That tunnel was approximately 20 feet long, but just by putting a mirror at the end of the tunnel, we made it look like it was infinite.
And I put a super wide 9.8 lens on the camera to force a very strong perspective into it.
Because I felt the set is smaller than I wanted to make, especially in the tunnel. I said, okay, let's do one thing. Let's add some black acrylic in front, okay, so that people are, at least dancers, are able to come right up to us, okay, and they are not restricted by the space. And initially I had no intention of including the black acrylic space into the frame.
When we put the camera in there for the first time and switched on the lights, there was an audible gasp.
Wow, this has become now like a kaleidoscope, you know, because the whole octagon, reflects itself on each of the faces, and it, it's magical.
When we suddenly realized that this simple idea was going to work way beyond our wildest expectations.
When we got down to music, we tried to do a rendering which is completely different from what you heard before. And when we talked to Remo, we said, do a kind of rendering of your dance steps which you do not expect on a song like this. When he heard what we were planning to do, so he said, okay, so I'll give you a part where they punch the ground, and when you are trying to tilt it, I'll give them a moment where they'll kind of swing the other way around.
Hey, Sara, Zamana.
an exercise like this, when you have to crack it in about 20 odd days, that's how it happens. You just jam together, you build on the what the other guy has already achieved, and the other guy builds on what you have done, and you try and reach somewhere.
Sara Zamana, Sara Zamana, हसीनों का दीवाना, हसीनों का दीवाना, ज़माना कहे फिर क्यों, ज़माना कहे फिर क्यों.
There is no point if we do a jacket similar to what people have seen 30 years back. So we have to do something completely different. In fact, one part I was already very happy with, because Aki said that let's do a track pant and a track jacket. I said, wow, that's fantastic, because you expect people to be in a formal jacket for a song like this, because that's what we have seen. So I like the irreverence of a track pant and track jacket. The other jacket, we said, why don't we just take straight lines and place them like that and get a pattern out of it, and sleeves a bit like this, okay, which is a very like Art Deco way of approaching something, and we get a good design out of it. That becomes the front, and this becomes the trouser. That's the side view of the trouser. It's a nightmare, I tell you, because these strips are not meant to be used on clothing. They are printed circuits. Okay, so the moment you do a little move, the circuit goes, and then you have to do some soldering and all.
Soon took a simple idea beyond its confines. He surrounded himself with a team of talented people and inspired them by giving them freedom and his confidence.
By the time, on the first day of the shoot, everybody was, wow, this is happening real. What you normally see in a post-finish film is happening in front of the eyes. Okay. Till then, nobody knew that we'd actually be able to pull it off. When that happened on first day, second day, most of the crew came with their families. So you had about 20 odd extra people sitting behind, somebody's wife, somebody's mom, and they were all sitting and watching this incredible thing. But it felt fantastic, because it's great to see the crew bring their families to see something that they're working on, which means we're on the right track.
I'm glad to say actually nothing did go wrong. We had a very seamless run for the next 3 days. The graphics played beautifully. The alignment was perfect. The homework that the team did was absolutely incredible, and all the heads of department, they just worked seamlessly.
I think the exciting part about getting into a project like this is the fact that as you go along, you'll figure it out, because what is the joy of doing a crossword if you already know the answers? You pick it up only because you don't know the answers, but you have the confidence that eventually I will get the answers.
Sara Zamana, Sara Zamana, हसीनों का दीवाना, हसीनों का दीवाना, ज़माना कहे फिर क्यों, ज़माना कहे फिर क्यों, पूरा है दिल लगाना, दिल लगाना, सारा ज़माना.